What's up, Enlisters? Today I want to bring you some of my best tips and tricks to make sure that you succeed on the battlefield. Let's get into it. Okay, so my first tip comes in with the engineers and how to set yourself up for success in the match. Okay, so I'm always spawning with an engineer in my squad, preferably the engineer squad, because it has multiple engineers in it. And the first thing I'm doing is I'm swapping over to my knife, because tip number one, knives, grenades, pistols, or even the hammer gives you increased run speed. So that's going to help you get into position to build those rally points much quicker. While I'm doing that, I'm also looking for any kind of vehicle that can often be found near the starting spawn areas of any match. First thing you want to do, run over those vehicles and take that vehicle and put yourself into position to set up a rally right away. Now, great spots for rallies are somewhere near the point, but also not in a spot that's going to be heavily trafficked by the enemy, because more often than not that rally point will be destroyed or your team won't be able to spawn there. So creating an effective rally is what's important, not just building any rally, but make sure you're building an effective one. So off to the side, usually on a flank where the enemy isn't going to be traveling too often, is your best bet. Or another fantastic area, especially on Conquest, is deep on the enemy's side where they spawn, because that's going to allow you to hold that point and cut them off from getting onto your side of the map. And if they can't find that rally or can't destroy that rally, it's 9 times out of 10 a guaranteed victory. So rallies are super important, which brings me to another engineering tip. If there are multiple engineers in the squad, you can actually use them to help you construct items. So rally points, especially for machine gun nests, because they take so long to build. So what you want to do is start constructing them, and then you can actually press X while you're building it, and any engineers in a nearby area will come over and help you construct that item. Which brings me to my next point. Don't be that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
That builds a rally point and surrounds it with sandbags, or builds a rally point in the attic, or does both. Because what's going to happen is anyone that spawns in there is going to spawn inside the sandbags and get trapped, and that's going to essentially prevent anybody from using their squad properly. And this can actually lose you the game. So it's extremely important that when you build a rally, it's free and easy for anyone that spawns on it to move out. Which brings me to yet another tip. If someone on your team does build a terrible rally point, you can't shoot it, but you can stab it with your knife. So there is a way to get rid of terrible allied rally points if they are created. And also you can destroy sandbags and other structures holding down the J key. Which brings me to yet another fantastic tip. While I'm building my rally points or machine gun nests or whatever, if you don't need help constructing them, be sure to send your squad to the objective where you'll be heading next, because while you're building, you can traverse the terrain and just swap over to your other units and boom, instantly on the point, or instantly into the next area that you want to travel. Use your squad to your advantage. Make sure you're always sending them to where you want to be, or if you're pushing up on a point that's extremely dangerous, make sure you leave them back in a house or behind a house or somewhere safe, so that if you do die, at least you can quickly respawn and run up with the rest of your squad. Which brings me to my next point. When you're pushing points, make sure you look at the objective at the top, because when you're on the point, you'll be able to see if there's any enemies on the point based on how much red is in the meter. If there's no red, then there's no enemies and you can just safely take it and prepare your defenses. If there is a little bit of red, that means there's 1 or 2 units on the point, and then you should be proceeding with caution. Now, this brings me to my next fantastic tip. When you're going into a multi-level house and you don't see any enemies on the ground floor, that means they're probably on the second floor. Well, you can look for dust falling from the ceiling, and that will show you their position if they're moving around. If they're not moving around, then you won't be seeing any dust, and 9 times out of 10 you can be assured they're just laying there waiting for you to run up the stairs, which is a fantastic time to use your grenades. Which brings me to another fantastic tip. When you're running to your objectives, you can actually press the C key to free look around, so that you can keep an eye on all your surroundings and keep yourself safe or even spot enemies rather than just being focused on straight ahead of you. It's a fantastic tool and I use it all the time. Give myself the advantage and to raise my awareness while I'm running from point to point, which brings me to yet another tip. If you're an engineer defending a point and you want some extra resources to help you identify where the enemy is, use that barbed wire to your advantage. Okay, even if you don't want the barbed wire up because it's going to inhibit your ability to move around, what you can do is build it and then deconstruct it, but it'll still be laying on the ground, and if an enemy runs over it, it's going to make noise. So you can use them as like sound tripwires essentially to help you identify where the enemies are running in from, which brings me to yet another point about enemy footsteps. Now, I don't really know how to explain this or show this, but I have noticed in game that when you hear footsteps around you, if they're like louder and sloshier, those tend to be enemies. I'm not too sure why, but I'm pretty sure the enemy footsteps are actually enhanced compared to friendly footsteps. I believe friendly footsteps are kind of dulled down a bit, more of a softer sound, but the enemy ones, they seem to be louder and clonkier and sloshier. That's the only way I can describe it. So just keep that in mind. But another thing I use to help identify if an enemy's in the area is just looking at my radar as well. If I hear footsteps and I look at my radar and I see a bunch of friendly blue arrows on there, then generally that means they are friendly. But if you're hearing footsteps and there's no friendlies on the radar, then you can guarantee that's an enemy. And now for a new tip. If you did not know, a lot of the later tier guns have the ability to switch from semi and full auto. For example, the FG42. By pressing H, you can switch between semi-auto and full auto mode, and this is fantastic for when you're out in a field. You can put it on semi-auto, but when you're pushing a point, you can press H and switch to full auto and just really mow down anybody on the site. So it really gives you that versatility, and if you did not know about it, now you know.
And if you don't know, now you know.
A couple more points that are kind of general but also important. Grenades, make sure you're using them. They can be extremely valuable for flushing out enemies or just seeing if there's enemies waiting for you inside rooms or behind buildings. If you don't know, when you're proceeding with caution, throw those bombs, throw those grenades, and don't forget you can cook them, meaning that you can start the fuse on them and throw them so they blow up almost immediately upon landing, which can be extremely useful because you don't want the enemy having enough time to be able to grab that grenade and throw it back at you. Which brings me to yet another point. You can throw back grenades and bombs back at people that have thrown them at you. So you just run up to them and middle click your mouse and it will pick it up and throw it back in the general area. But that's why it's important to cook them so that they can do that. And speaking of cooking grenades, I've been finding that if you're having a hard time blowing up tanks with the explosive packs, I've been finding great success with cooking them and then just throwing them right on the side of their treads. They seem to blow up 9 times out of 10. Every time I throw an explosive pack on top of the tank or the side of the tank, it's kind of like 50-50 whether it blows it up or not. So I've been aiming for the tracks right at the bottom and I've been seeing a lot of success with that. All right, now I just wanted to bring you a couple more tips from outside of the game having to do with the academy. You can send troops to the academy from different campaigns, so go ahead and upgrade something in Moscow, go ahead and upgrade something in Berlin, go ahead and upgrade something in Normandy, all at the same time. And you can even do allies and Axis in the same campaign. So essentially, if you're playing all campaigns and all sides, you could have 6 different troops in the academy at one time. And what I like to do is do like all my one star, 2 stars while I'm playing, and then before I log, I make sure I do my 3-star, 4-star, my longer upgrades while I'm not playing, so that when I come back, I don't have to wait for those to be ready. They'll be ready for me. And my last tip is when disassembling your guns, you can actually do it a lot quicker. I know some of you and even myself have been sitting there clicking back and forth to disassemble, but what you can do is you can actually just put your mouse on the disassemble key and then keep spamming enter. So throw up your favorite YouTube video, something like that, and then just sit there spamming enter until you have those 400 Car 98s disassembled. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope those tips and tricks help you out on the battlefield. If there are any tips and tricks that you think I missed or that I should know about, please leave them in the comments below. Also, I just want to touch in on my streaming schedule. It is changing right now. It's a little bit up in the air because I have gone back to work. Casinos have opened and I do work in a casino. So my schedule is a little bit up in the air right now, but I am still getting those streams in Monday to Friday. They're just not at the designated 6 to 10 times. So just stay tuned. Look in the Discord for any updates and Twitter, and I'll see you guys on the battlefield. Ciao for now.